Welcome in the name of Christ. God's grace, love, and peace be with you.
And also be with you.
Welcome to our service of worship for Sunday, January the 31st, 2021. We've already made it through this month, and 1/12 of the way through this brand new year that is filled with hope and possibilities and unknown adventures. So we give thanks for the days of 2021 that are behind us, and we look forward with hope for the days that are yet to come and for the revelations that God will offer to us. So welcome to our time of worship today. And we're delighted that you're with us here today. So today we are recording our service during our time of worship this morning here at Westside United. And the service will be recorded and then posted to our website and our Facebook page later today for those who are unable to be with us or choose not to be with us for this time of worship. So I thank you for being here, and I thank you for sharing this time of worship with us. Our next time that we will gather in the sanctuary for our in-sanctuary worship will be at the end of the month of February, which is February the 28th. So we're hoping to continue on worshiping in the sanctuary as we are allowed to and permitted to through restrictions and guidelines offered by the province of Nova Scotia at the last Sunday of each month. When we're gathered here, it's important for us to share that all health guidelines and protocols have been followed. Those who are attending here are socially distanced, they're spaced apart, and they're wearing masks. And so we give thanks for everyone and their cooperation in sharing with us to make this time a safe time for us. When you leave, you're asked to continue to respect social distancing when you leave this time of worship and enter and exit through the main doors in the foyer. Now, a couple of other things I'd like to share with you and information. The receipts for income tax purposes are available, and they're located in the hall today for you to pick up, those of you with us, and the rest will be sent through Canada Post for delivery to the other individuals who have receipts there. There's also a few weekly offering envelope boxes that are remaining to be picked up. The reports for the creation of our 2020 annual report have been arriving, and soon the report will be in the creation stage. Due to meeting limits, we are unable to host our regular annual meetings that we've enjoyed in the past. There will be no annual meeting worship, or no annual meeting potluck, or no annual meeting. But through special permission by the sub-executive of the General Council of the United Church of Canada, the governing body of the pastoral charge, which for us is the official board, has been permitted the authority to make certain decisions in regards to annual reports, particularly around budgets and finances. So the official board will plan a time to meet and to do what they are able to do on behalf of the congregation, as they have continued to do and act on your behalf throughout this entire time of pandemic. So a notice of meeting will be issued for when the official board is going to meet. It's time for the first round of our 2021 grocery card orders. In the foyer you will find some forms. Those forms can also be emailed to you if you wish to receive them. And the order deadline is in 2 weeks' time for orders and payment, February the 14th. If you'd like to know more about that grocery card program and how you could like to be able to participate in it, please contact us. Our email address is westsideunitedchurch, all one word, @gmail.com. westsideunitedchurch@gmail.com. And Bev would like to let you know that there are apple pies that have been made this past week, and they are oven baked, and they are in the freezer, and they are $10 each. So if you would like to look at getting an apple pie or 2 or 3 or a dozen, contact Bev. We will post that information on our website and our Facebook page as well, and how to see how you can get them. Anything further and announcements that we need to share with one another? I don't think I have any more either. So, delighted that you're with us. Delighted to share in this time of worship and to be together in this place and to unite our hearts together in worship. Let's just take a moment in silence to center ourselves, allowing time to still our hearts and clear the chaos of words and clutter from the the daily life that we endure and the day of what is clouding our minds, and allow time for us to open our spirits to welcome the sacred, the holy, and the divine presence of God as we join our hearts together in worship. With hearts and spirits open and unite, let us worship God. I invite you to join with me in our responsive invitation to worship. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through him, and without him not one thing came into being. What has come into being in him was life, and the light was the light of all people. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not overcome it. Let's continue with our hearts, our voices in prayer. In this season of light, we have received enduring light in the world. It is the light of God's presence. It is the light of God's guidance. It is the light illuminating God's hope for peace and justice everywhere. Let us come to the light and discover we are not alone. Amen. The reading of scripture that I'd like to share with you today comes to us from the prophet Isaiah. And this reading is actually the one that is prescribed for Epiphany, the first day of Epiphany, which is January the 6th. But I offer it to us in the midst of this season of Epiphany, as we hold on to the assurance of God's presence and God's gift of light in this season, in these days after Christmas. So let's open our hearts to hear these prophetic words from the prophet Isaiah. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of God has risen upon you. For darkness shall cover the earth, and thick darkness of the peoples. But God will arise upon you, and the glory of God will appear over you. Nations shall come to your light, and the kings to the brightness of your dawn. Lift up your eyes and look around. They all gather together. They come to you. Your sons shall come from far away, and your daughters shall be carried on their nurses' arms. Then you shall see and be radiant. Your heart shall thrill and rejoice, because the abundance of the sea shall be brought to you. The wealth of the nations shall come to you. A multitude of camels shall cover you. The young camels of Midian and Ephah. All those from Sheba shall come. They shall bring gold and frankincense, and shall proclaim the praises of God. May the blessings of God be upon these words of Scripture and upon our hearts as we open them up to receive these words and to meditate how God is speaking to us, the people of the church today, the followers of Christ. Amen. Something that we've been doing lately, and we do it every so often, is we put out our bird feeders. Now, we've not had great luck with bird feeders because we don't usually attract birds. The only birds we seem to have always had were crows. And they would come and they would scatter around the seeds and not do much good for any of the rest of them. Then if it wasn't the birds, it was squirrels. And if it wasn't the squirrels, then occasionally we'd be met with raccoons. It was always seemed to be a challenge, and we kind of gave up feeding the squirrels and the raccoons and just the crows. But we keep trying, and we keep hoping that someday we'll actually have a variety of birds. So we tried it again, and we put out a bird feeder. And what we did with it is we moved it around in different locations. And so we put one of those double hooked cast iron rods in one of our gardens. And we surrounded it with trees and thought, well, maybe that'll help to entice some of the birds. Now, if we're outside on a day like today where the sun is shining, we would hear the chickadees chirping in the trees. And occasionally we'll see the flash of a bluebird. Well, the chickadees have been coming. And we see the occasional blue jay. But then, we've also had two woodpeckers. A male and a female. Coming and sitting there and enjoying it. But then, the woodpecker goes at the form bell, and the seeds fly everywhere. Well, who do you think comes and gets the scattered seeds? The squirrel. And the squirrel comes, and now I've come to find out we have at least 3 squirrels around our yard. Because one day, one was sitting on the railing out back, looking at me. And 2 more were jumping across through the backyard in the trees. You'd swear it was a bear going there in those dry leaves and those 2 squirrels. And they would bound along and chasing each other. And they would run across the leaves, and then they'd whoop this tree, and they'd bounce from branch to branch, and they would chitter, and they'd chatter, and they'd go on. And one was sitting there, away from them. He must not be friends. But he was eating the seeds. Or she was eating the seeds. Well, one day I went out. I was on the back deck. It was a beautiful day. And this squirrel was sitting on the branch next to the bird feeder, eating away. And then would reach up, grab another seed, and reach up. And just kept doing this over and over again. Gradually just keep taking some seeds out and nibbling away. And I said to the squirrel, I talked to the animals. And I said, squirrel, if you keep eating like that, that little wee branch isn't going to hold you very much longer. And the squirrel just looked at me. And then started, I think what it was saying was, there's a storm a-coming, and I'm just gathering up some energy to endure the storm that is ahead. I also think it told me to go back inside and mind my own business. Well, the other night, this was after I saw the squirrel, and we got that snowstorm last Friday. And I was listening and we were watching a television show, and I had a new bowl of bits and bites, nuts and bolts that I'd ate. So as I was watching the movie,
Squirrel.
I thought, I'm a squirrel. What am I just absorbing and sharing, getting all this energy for? Reminded me of how we need to store things to endure the storms of life that are before us. Last Thursday night, last Thursday, January the 28th, was what has been known as and being promoted as Let's Talk Day, promoted by Bell Media, Bell Live. Let's talk. How do we connect with each other? How do we connect with each other to support each other in difficult and trying times? That evening, on the evening of January 28th, was also the full moon. And I was out on the back deck because, coming through the living room window, you could see the moon just starting to come up over the tops of the trees. But then later, I got up in order to see it head go back. And out back, just the level of clouds that were there, the moon was shining. but around it was a small rainbow of colors. And that image of the moon and that light reminded me about the ways in which we need to gather whatever's around us to give us the strength and the courage to endure the tough, difficult, and trying and challenging days. That gathering of light, like the squirrel gathering energy and strength, is what I relate to when I think about the words of Scripture coming from the prophet Isaiah. Arise, shine, for your light is come. What are the sources of the things that we need to gather within us, gather from around us, to celebrate the presence of God and the energy that is offered to us by others, by creation, by God, to give us the courage and strength that we need to endure the storms of life? One of the things I'd like us to think about is how we gather light. There was a process of us to help ground ourselves, particularly around these days of long, dark, cold nights. To find things to help us to deal with our grief, to deal with our depression, to deal with our challenges and our struggles on these uncertain days, not just now in the season of this new year, in this time of year, but also as we continue to live with the reality of the pandemic in our midst. What do we gather?
Food.
And to store, and to give us strength and energy. We gather what is around us,
Air.
to give us light and to give us hope. From the Edge Ministry Network, that is one of the network ministries of the United Church of Canada, they offered us a guideline of how to gather things and how to gather them within our midst. And one of those tools that they offer to us is to engage our senses, our 5 senses of taste, smell, hearing, sight, and touch. We all have those 5 senses, some to varying degrees of one another. So to help us to gather light, to gather energy, go through this process, not just here in our worship, but go through it in your daily life when you feel you need that extra energy or that time to pause. Fine. It goes 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5 things you see. Let those 5 things that you see help you to gather light. See a sunrise, a bird at the bird feeder, the face of a loved one.
Memory.
See memories. What else do you see? One more.
Moon.
Moon, stars, the beauty of snow, the cold winter's nights. Find 4 things and identify 4 things that you can feel, touch. The softness of the fur of a pet. The warmth
Of Sherpa.
of a sweater or wool. The snow. One more thing. The warmth of just a fire, of a home, of the hand of a loved one. And use that to gather light. 3 things you can hear. Birds, music. What? Wind. Yeah. 3 things you can hear.
Trickling water brook.
2 things that you can smell. Fresh air. Baked bread. 2 things you can smell. Coffee in the morning. Chocolate. That comes out with the next one too. And 1 thing you can taste. The bread, the food. So gathering light, like the days in creation right now, as we watch the number of daylight minutes increase at the end or at the beginning, is a gift to us from God as the Creator. To remind us that in these dark and uncertain days, the light is increasing. And the witness for us as people of God is to hold on to that faith, that courage, those strength, those signs, those symbols, those images of how God's love is increasing in our midst. And giving us the courage and the strength to move forward. And in those uncertain days when we don't know or we're not certain how we're going to get through today, how we're going to get through tomorrow, how we're going to face the week ahead, look for those ways in which you can gather light that will draw you into a closer relationship and a reminder to you that you're in the presence of God. 5 images of the senses. Taste, hear, smell, feel, see. And if you struggle even to find those 5 things, narrow it down to 3. Do what you need to do. Do what we need to do to hold on to what God is offering to us in this season of Epiphany, to gather light and energy and strength, to help us to understand how the presence of God, the words of the prophet Isaiah, are being made alive in our midst. For arise, your light has come. And these are God's gifts. God's gift to us as the people of God. Let's join together our hearts in prayer. We give thanks to you, O God, for the blessings of light in our midst. We give thanks for the ways in which you continue to inspire us with the beauty of creation that's surrounding us. We give thanks for the ways in which your light is increasing in the natural world at this time of year in our midst. And may we hold on to that increasing of light as a way to remind ourselves about the ways that you are continually increasing your presence in our midst. Help us attune all of our senses. Attune our senses to align them within your loving embrace. To help us to be aware of what is around us and surrounding us that gives us a sign of courage and hope. We live in uncertain days. We're not sure what the next news broadcast is going to deliver into our midst. We're not sure what the next phone call, what the next appointment, what the next journey into town or shopping is going to do to our routine and our daily lives. But help us not to live in fear and trepidation, but to live in a way that we can hold on to the fullness of life that you offer to us even in the midst of uncertainties. Help us to find within our midst the light of your presence and the ways in which your light is made known to us. Whether it be chirping of a squirrel, the spectacular sight of a full moon glistening off of new fallen snow, or the wind through trees, or the warmth of a loved one's hand, or the taste of food that reminds us of comfort and love. And thank you. And I ask you to help us to share what we need to do in our lives that brings us hope and courage, to share it with others. To remind them that they are not alone, that our friends, our family, our community, those who are most struggling in these days, that they too are surrounded by light and God's gifts of peace and hope. Help us to be beacons of light to others, images of your love. Surround us and guide us, God, as we give thanks for the blessings of new light and new ways of encouraging and experiencing your presence. So as a community of faith, we continue to celebrate the ways in which we can be the people of God and the disciples of Christ in this place and in the world. We give thanks for the ways in which we've offered our time, our talents, our treasures. We give thanks for the ways that we offer support and encouragement and hope to others through our personal acts of faith and friendship and community, as well as through the ways in which we support and encourage the ministry of this church and congregation in our communities and around the world. We give thanks for your continual support, financial support, and the words that you offer to us that enable us to continue to move forward in the ministry that we offer. For all the gifts that we offer today and every day, we offer and dedicate them all to God. I beg you to join with me in this unison prayer. Loving God, you give us a light to shine into the world and a star to lead us in our faithful response for your love. Through us and the gifts we share, may we be a blessing as much as we have been blessed. As we prepare to draw this time of worship as a community to a close, I invite you once again to join your heart and your voice with mine, holding on to the images of light that are before us to illuminate our path and to guide us and to hold us and to encourage us as we move forward into the world, into the adventures, into the beauty that God offers to us. Let's join together in these words. You speak to us in many ways, through rushing wind or still small voice, in scripture word or through your grace. And we in turn find many ways to hear the world's insistent voice break through the silence and take your place. Help us to hear your voice, see your light, and be your beacon of love amidst the clamor of this world. In the name of the one you gifted to us. Amen. So let us gather the light of God's presence. And may that light shine around you. May that light shine in you and guide you with love on the journey